Hello and welcome to Relationships and Astrology, and this is our series on the transits of the week, and we're looking at the week of the 20th to the 26th of March, and I'm Margaret Gray in Dublin.
And I'm Armand Diaz in New York.
What a week, isn't it, Armand, coming up? I mean, there's quite a lot going on. I mean, there's the Equinox, and then there's the Sun conjunct Venus, the inferior conjunction, and lots of aspects from Mercury to the planets. So, well, what's your sense of this coming week, the overall flavor of it?
You know, it's got its share of challenges, like I guess every week does. One thing that I noticed about this week is that it starts on Monday with the sun moving into Aries. It's the equinox. It's the beginning, from an astrological point of view, it's the beginning of the astrological year because the sun comes into the first sign of the zodiac. The sun is actually in the northern hemisphere above the horizon more than it's below.
Yes.
It feels good to be in the northern hemisphere.
Yes, at last.
But at the same time that the sun is growing and we feel that, the moon is coming into the new moon, which is next Monday, the 27th. And so as the solar cycle is really kind of heating up, the lunar cycle is kind of winding down. And so I think we're kind of getting a little bit of mixed messages in terms of the energies this week. And I think we'll probably be feeling the lunar energy a little bit more, despite all my enthusiasm for the sun's change. So I think that you know, the end of the lunar cycle is always about reflection. It's a little bit of a time to go inwards, although these aspects do not look to me like it's a time to go inwards. They look like they're going to be pretty popping.
Yes, and there's so much fire energy in the sky. I mean, I think that's the difference that, you know, we've been talking for weeks about all the Neptunian energy, and now we're suddenly in all this very dynamic fire energy. And fire has that quality of kind of me first, particularly Aries. And so I think with this start, you know, with this Aries, the equinox, which is always the start of something, it certainly demarcates the kind of seasons in the year. And the start of the zodiac, Aries, is very much about me. Where am I at? So in terms of relationships, I think there's a lot of energy that is asking us to focus on, okay, let's start with ourselves first. Where are we at? And kind of clarify how we're feeling, and then consider the other person, which is, of course, the opposite, the Libra, opposite the Aries. And I think it's interesting with the equinox because we've got day is equivalent to night. There's that equal share. And so it's a very good time in relationship to think about issues of equality. You know, where are we equal partners? Where are we really sharing our lives together? And where are we not? Where are there inequalities? And how can we bring everything in balance the way Libra wants?
You know, and Mercury, the planet of communication, which, as you're always pointing out, is so crucial in relationships. I understand it too, but you're always very quick to point out that communication is so important. And Mercury is really the most active planet this week, and he's in the sign of Aries, where he's quick and impulsive, a little bit, you know, I see things from my perspective. On Thursday, he goes up and elbows Pluto, and that could be a challenge to, you know, powers that be and so on. Then, you know, on Friday, he is opposite Jupiter, and you know, Jupiter's in Libra, where he's very diplomatic, thinking about you and me. Let's sort of balance things out. And Mercury's standing opposite. You know, I guess he's on one of the scales, but somehow or another, he's not really thinking about equality at that point in time. There could be a big push-pull between me and us.
Yes, I think that's really the theme of the week, isn't it? It's very much, is it me, us? Is there a way to compromise or not? And really to be, you know, before we actually say something, to consider, maybe try and consider the other person, because the inclination at the moment, as we mentioned last week with Mercury and Aries, is more to just kind of say something and then really think about it later and think, whoops. And particularly as we reach then the end of the week, Sunday, where Mercury's conjunct Uranus in Aries. There's really a little bit, I would say, almost volatility, or maybe impetuousness would be the correct word around. So I think in relationships, it's really important to kind of really keep grounding within ourselves. And then from that place, try to consider very carefully what conversations we have and how we have them. Because this week in particularly with Mercury, as you said, making so many aspects, we can just, we can just get kind of caught up in the moment and not really give too much thought in terms of, is this a balanced conversation, or is this really more about really what I want and I want it now?
Totally. And also, the internalized energy of coming into the new moon, we get to that real end balsamic stage of the lunar cycle, and Mercury's making all these hot aspects, there could be a little bit of frustration because it could be a little bit difficult to externalize some of what Mercury is going through, and you can kind of sort of implode a little bit. And also at the end of the lunar cycle, there could be a little tendency or an ability to end things rather than sort of continue with them. Or certainly it's not excellent for beginning things, especially with Venus retrograde. But there could be this sort of, if I can't do anything, at least maybe I can sort of pull the plug on this situation. And I think it's important that we, not jump into that type of response pattern, because it's like, well, the only thing I can do is walk away. Maybe walk away and give yourself a little bit of space, or give the other person a little bit of space in a temporary type of way, but not to get too exaggerated with that.
I think that's so true, that sometimes people pull the plug just in order to do something. It's like in sheer frustration and feeling out of control, or that things aren't changing. So it feels so much easier, because pulling the plug often gives some initial relief. It's almost like, well, at least I've done something. And then comes the like, oh my goodness, but what did I do? And did I really want to do that? And sometimes it's too late then to go back and reconnect again. So I think absolutely to really be careful, to really give it some time. And this is just not a week to reach those decisions, and certainly not with Venus retrograde. Now, Venus is kind of interesting because, of course, we've got the Sun conjunct Venus on Saturday, and that's the inferior conjunction. And then, of course, she disappears, Venus, for about 9-10 days. We won't see her in the sky anymore. And then she comes back as a morning star. So this is quite a big shift for Venus, and particularly when she is retrograde in the sky. So it's almost like, we get this illumination of what we value, what we find beautiful, what we find attractive, and then it's like darkness. She's absolutely gone. So there might be a sense of, like, back to what you were saying of pulling the plug, that there can be a temptation maybe at that point to say, oh my goodness, the other person doesn't care about me, they don't love me, maybe I don't love them, and to pull the plug while Venus is in that place of darkness, rather than just say, you know what, let's just think about this. Let's just, take some breathing space.
It's very, very beautifully put. I think that we cannot see Venus. We cannot see that light that it's usually the brightest thing that we see in the sky other than the sun and the moon, or it often is at any rate. And it's gone. And yes, it's an especially bad time to be making decisions. It is the most inward part of the entire retrograde phase, and it could be a real challenge to just sort of sit with it, especially with all these with these aspects. Mercury is getting you ready to go go do anything.
He's very impatient, Hermes. I mean, he's kind of one of those gods. He's a trickster, and he also plays tricks. So we also can get a little confused and, just jump onto something that maybe may not be real, that we haven't thought through. And just to say to our listeners that, of course, if they'd like to sign up for our webinar on Venus on Sunday, the 26th, it's a 1-hour webinar. We're going to be going through all the signs of the zodiac that Venus is in and how they respond to relationships. So you'll find out more about your Venus sign and how it interacts with others in relationships. So feel free to go to our website, www.relationshipsandastrology.com.
And it's a great way to it's a great way to spend Venus retrograde.
Absolutely. Yes, figure out what it means in your chart and how you relate to others with it.
I agree. Well, I'll see you next week, Margaret.
Absolutely. Take care, Aman. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.